I think at this point we can all admit that the Jon Kent Superman experiment under Tom Taylor is an absolute disaster. It's completely failed. It's failed on so many different levels, whether it's enthusiasm, sales, interest in the comic book. I saw this coming. I've talked about it here on the channel. I reviewed the very first issue. It wasn't very good. I reviewed the second issue. It was absolutely worse. And you could see it was going in a very bad direction. Of course, then they did the big stunt marketing gimmick where, we're going to make Jon Kent gay or bisexual now so we can get some headlines and bump up sales, because they were absolutely atrocious from the very beginning. When you think about the interest in Superman, Son of Kal-El in comparison to other Superman comics on their number one issue, it is absolutely staggering. Superman, Son of Kal-El number one is estimated to have sold 68,000 copies on its number one issue. That sounds kind of good until you think about Superman number one in 2018 sold 133,000. That's not estimated. Those are real sales. In 2016, Superman Rebirth number one sold 118,000 copies. Superman number one sold 105,000 copies. And then in 2011, the other time within the last 10, 12 years that it's been rebooted, Superman number one sold 118,000. So essentially the interest was half just on the first issue. I would say that didn't work out very much. They tried to juice the sales with the big publicity stuff. It hasn't worked out. Yes, there were initial sales. There was interest. It's a Key comic book. So everybody with the Key comic app went out there and got them a copy. And I bet they're regretting it now, especially if they read it. Because almost every single issue of Superman, Son of Kal-El from Tom Taylor has absolutely sucked. How could this have happened? Well, they haven't fleshed out the character very much. There hasn't been a whole lot about Jon Kent. The only thing I know about him is that he's really into illegal immigration. He really wants to save the environment, and that he's bisexual. Otherwise, I really don't know much about the character. Other than the fact that he thinks his father, Clark Kent, the greatest superhero in the history of superheroes, was an absolute failure and should have done more. What an absolute trash perspective on Clark Kent from Tom Taylor. Obviously, that's not Jon Kent's perspective. That's his father. He grew up and saw how great he was. Tom Taylor doesn't see it that way, so he came in with an agenda. He's talked about that at length. What he wanted to do with the character. He forgot he needed to round out the character. He forgot he actually had to write a comic book about Jon Kent being a superhero. Jon Kent coming out and having his first kiss and telling his mom that he's gay now. Obviously those things play into the story, and it didn't have to fail, but he never did anything heroic. He forgot to be a superhero. He became a super activist. Nobody wants to read a fucking comic book like this. There's also the other characters within the story that have been introduced, and they are all two-dimensional characters. There's nothing fully fleshed out about them, but Tom Taylor and his creative partner at this point, Cian Tormey, who's the new artist, don't see it that way. They can't even see their own failings, even though it's staring them in the face in the form of actual sales declining and interest declining on the series itself. You can't fix something if you don't realize it's broken. How did Tom Taylor break what should have been a pretty foolproof plan? A lot of people like Jon Kent. Certainly not as popular as Clark Kent, but if you're going to replace Clark Kent, Jon Kent is a logical successor, and he's a popular character that people have become attached to. That's why people were so pissed off when Brian Michael Bendis aged up the character and kind of destroyed it. You would have hoped that Tom Taylor was going to be part of the solution and do some things to fix the character. He hasn't addressed any of it. He mentioned it once, talking about getting a lollipop. I don't think that issue really went over very well. I thought it was fucking creepy. I think a lot of DC fans and Superman fans thought it was creepy. Now, Jon Kent and Jay Nakamura are essentially comic book cover models. That's kind of what they are. You got Pride Month, let's do a Jon Kent, Jay Nakamura cover with them cuddling. Well, that'll be sweet. It'll sell some copies, and I'm sure they do move some units. But they forgot you actually have to write a good story first. And that is the underlying reason why all of this has failed. If the stories were good, because people were going to check it out, and if there was word around that, yeah, this is a series you need to check out, people would read it. It's still Superman. It wouldn't be as popular as a Clark Kent-led Superman book, but it didn't have to fail. Why did it fail? We do have this article from CBR.com from Cassandra Clark. It's an interview entitled Superman, Son of Kal-El, Taylor and Tormey discuss Jon's courageous milestones. And it's pretty much a softball interview. There's not a lot of hard-hitting things going on in here, but you can certainly glean why this has failed so spectacularly from the words, mostly of Cian Tormey, but there's also one quote from Tom Taylor I'm going to talk about. But these are some examples of what the discussion was, and these are from the interviewer to the creative team. And you can see why not much interesting comes out of this. Cian, I can't wait to talk about Jon's coming out moment with Lois. It was such a warm, beautiful, full splash page of their embrace. My favorite detail is how Jon looks both happy and surprised at the same time. I'm curious, did this panel always look this way? Wow, what hard-hitting stuff from Cassandra Clark. Don't ask him anything interesting. Don't ask him about the sales drop. Don't ask him about the enthusiasm for the character or how people have responded to the changes, people that might not have liked it. Let's just throw him softballs left and right. But like I said, you can glean some information on why this has failed so spectacularly. One of the main reasons is Jon's not really a hero in the book. And I think it's by design. They kind of talk about it in the interview where they're talking about Superman, Son of Kal-El. I believe it's issue number 10 or 11. It's whatever the last one is that came out this week. Doc and I are going to review it on the channel on Monday. Shocking, right? Because it absolutely sucks. This is what Cian Tormey had to say when talking about Lois in the issue. Ultimately, she's the hero and the badass of the whole issue. It's Lois's issue. Yeah, Jon is going through his crisis and everything, but Lois saves the day. Ultimately, she is the person who makes Jon feel safe. Well, I wonder why Jon Kent is getting over as a superhero. He's only being overshadowed by every other character in his own comic book. Don't do anything to put Jon Kent front and center and show him be heroic and stepping into his father's footsteps and maybe making a mistake or two along the way. Let's make sure that we highlight Lois Lane as the real hero of the book. We've never seen that take on the characters ever. Jon Kent has never led his own superhero book. This is the first opportunity to really introduce the character as the front and center lead. And he's already taking a step back. And you can see from the words of Cian Tormey, the artist, that's all by design. That's all by design of Tom Taylor and the creative team. I wonder why the character isn't taking off. You can't just tell Jon's coming of age story about falling in love with a boy, getting his first kiss and telling his mom and coming out and getting a lollipop from Nightwing and expect the character to get over as a superhero. He's never been his own identifiable superhero, and he still isn't because he's Superman, but you needed to highlight this character. If you want Jon Kent to be special, you have to show him as special, not playing second fiddle to his mommy. Cian Tormey isn't over because then he talks about Jay Nakamura and how important he is to the story. But you're going to see Jay also go through these emotional arcs as well. He's a rich, diverse character of his own. I don't know if you noticed before, but I had a lot of fun with my Twitter bio a long time ago saying that I'm drawing Jay Nakamura and his friend for DC Comics. Ha ha ha. The thing is, Jay is a fully realized three-dimensional person, like all of us are. It's Jon's comic, but it's very much Jay's story. It's Jon's comic, but it's Jay's story because Jay's more important, according to Cian Tormey, the artist, and obviously that probably would have come down from Tom Taylor himself. Jay Nakamura is special. He's the one that's supposed to be front and center. It's time to flesh him out. Of course, they haven't done that. How have they fleshed out Jay Nakamura, really? So he's a masked superhero that's got some powers, that's the leader of the truth or something, and he's kissed Jon. What else is he? Where are the other defining characteristics of Jay Nakamura? I ask you that, other than being a variant cover model. That's all the character is. That's all they treat him as. They haven't fleshed this character out. There's been the same problem with Tom Taylor's Nightwing. They introduce all these ideas and he never does anything with them. Everything's always stuck in neutral. Why is he the leader of the truth? Why is he so interested in illegal immigration? Why is he so interested in environmentalism? We just know that he is because he is. Well, that's really interesting, but that's not fully fleshed out. You can actually have the character go and do things and demonstrate why these things are important to him. And they haven't done that because they've been too busy doing this stupid coming out story that really hasn't fleshed anything out. We just see him making out and hugging sometimes. But this is Jay Nakamura's story, but it's Jon's comic. So he gets to be essentially a prop in his own comic book universe. It's Superman, Son of Kal-El, starring Jon Kent, where he's in the background, taking a backseat not only to Lois Lane, but Jay Nakamura. And it's by design. I wonder why the comic book doesn't sell. I wonder why there isn't increased interest in Jon Kent and his story. We do have one quote from Tom Taylor about the book, and this is what he had to say when asked, why did you lean towards making Jay have more mysterious intentions and potentially be Jon's new nemesis? Because that is somewhat hinted in the last issue. This is what Tom Taylor says. I can't really say anything about that. You'll have to just read the next issue. I will say that we've tried to subvert expectations throughout the series. All may not be what it seems. Goody, goody, we're subverting expectations on purpose again, because that has worked so many times in the past, the recent past. Whenever you go out there intentionally trying to subvert expectations of the audience, you almost always turn them off. I wonder why sales just aren't there or Superman Son of Kal-El. I wonder why there isn't interest in what should be the second flagship book of all of DC Comics. One of the big reasons is Clark Kent is not starring in it, but you got Jon Kent. You got to do the best that you can. Well, let's subvert expectations. Well, the expectation, and when we come into the comic book, is that he's a superhero, and it's going to be about Jon Kent. Well, let's subvert those. He's not going to be a superhero. He's going to be a super activist. He's going to fly sometimes, but he's not going to really save anybody. And it's not going to be about Jon Kent. It's going to be about Lois. It's going to be about Jay Nakamura. It's Jon's comic, but it's Jay's story. I wonder how I predicted that this would all fail right from the very beginning before any of this conversation about Jon coming out and having a boyfriend happen. Am I Nostradamus, or have I read enough Tom Taylor ongoing comics from Marvel in the past to know exactly what he's going to do here? Drop the ball spectacularly and essentially kill off the character. Congratulations, sir. You're the guy that can't sell fucking Superman. Brian Michael Bendis could sell Superman better than Tom Taylor. Congratulations, you won a fucking award. You're the dumbest guy at DC Comics. You and whoever the editor is that is approving your stories that aren't about Jon Kent. They're about making Lois a super duper star and making Jay Nakamura and telling his story. We'll just put old Jon Kent in the background. He's a prop in his own story. I wonder how it could have failed. As I mentioned earlier, I've been saying this since day one on this series before all the controversy even came out. I said, this is a terrible interpretation of the character. Tom Taylor is destroying Jon Kent, and I've been proven correct time and time again. If you don't believe me, we can go do this review of Superman Son of Kal-El #1, where I said it's clear that Jon Kent's going to be a tyrant, or this review of Superman Son of Kal-El #2, where I said this is absolutely the worst characterization on a Superman comic of all times. Take your pick, because I called it from day one.